Welcome to the Renee Report, bringing issues of topical interest. Hello everyone, I'm Renee Mera and welcome to the Renee Report, bringing issues of topical interest. We live in very disturbing times, fractured relationships, where relationships have hardly any meaning, divorces, premarital sex, extramarital sex, teen pregnancies are on the rise. So where do we find true love? Do we really find a soulmate? And is that true love really makes us complete? Is it unconditional, unadulterated? Is it pure? Is it divine? Well, those are some of the questions and solutions that have been brought out by author. She's a freelance journalist as well as a filmmaker, Dr. Raj Lakshmi Darbari, in her latest book, Knowledge of Love and Healing. And it's in 3 volumes. We're going to be talking about it. And this is a very timely and a relevant topic, and Dr. Darbari explores it from a very holistic perspective. Thank you so much for coming here. I know you live in India. You also, have a lot of work in London. Now you're in the United States for some time. We thought it would be great to catch up with you and talk about this topic, which is so very topical, and it's a hot button issue. Do we find true love? Does it really exist? Or are we just talking about lust and sex? That's what's happening around. And we see that, as I mentioned earlier in the program, teen pregnancies. We see that in 2015, according to the reports, it said in the United States, there were over 22.3 births per thousand by young teens. We're talking between 15 and 19 years of age. This is the time when they're actually should be learning about values, and here you've gotten teen pregnancy. And then we're talking about broken relationships, we're talking about broken marriages. So where do we find actually true love? Can you please let us know what is your definition of true love?
True love is a concept which people think does not exist. Exactly like you said, if the teenagers are going to get pregnant between the age of 15 and 19, then how are they going to find true love? Already they are blocked because they've gone through a very traumatic stage from a very young age. Now you see the brain capacity of that child cannot cope with the child, cannot cope with its studies, and then you cannot cope with society. No matter whatever you say, the burden is there. The stress levels are high. So the lady at that time or the girl at that time is so much involved in bringing up the child, she's lost the concept of love. It's an alien concept. If you talk to them about soulmate, she says, I don't know what that is. So when I went into the research of this, I said, all
and
these
it took
children...
you 8 years, I believe?
It took me maybe a little bit more because it took me 2 years to make 150 illustrations for the book. I had hired 22 artists, and its book has gone into 3 volumes, and it's written in play form. So it's very light reading, and you can relate to it. Somewhere down the line, you'll find questions in your mind which you could not formulate because your capacity of the brain between the teenagers at that time, or even by the time when you're 25, you actually cannot formulate the questions. And what is the reason behind that? The reason is very simple. You have not studied psychology, and if you have, then you've not studied the spiritual aspect of the human being. And then when they say, oh, India is very spiritual, and what is that all about? Yes, exactly. What is that all about?
See, because on one hand, you talk about in your book, we're talking about it's the land of Kama Sutra. And we have Ajanta Ellora caves, and they have very graphic images. On the other hand, we're talking about values, and that is the real spiritual side. And we're talking, and we see that repression, suppression coming out, and we see a lot of rapes. So how do you balance this out? We're talking about the ancient wisdom of our sages and our seers who really talked about values and how, relationships should be productive. And here we see so much of violence and turmoil and relationships gone astray. And even in India, we have so much of divorce rate that's going up.
Exactly. Now the divorce rate is it's increasing in India also, which is becoming a very a great concern for the parents because they spend so much of money on the marriage. And when the marriage breaks, some of them have even taken loans against that marriage, for that marriage to happen. And they hope for it to last. But then where is the problem? For example, when I made a study of the Western world, they had introduced sex education. Now, when you introduce sex education, you are actually propelling the child towards lust. You are exciting the child. You're talking to her about her body or the boy about their body, and therefore they want to experiment.
But do you feel that it's also important for a child to know about sex education because, we're living in this kind of a liberated world and it can, so they want to be sure that you understand the implications of what can happen if you get, pregnancy. And that's why it's important now, it's mandatory many times.
No, you see, Rene, what happens is if I'm going to school, I would rather learn about love first, the knowledge of love. What is love? People say, what is it? Is it a feeling? Does it run through your brain? Does it run through your heart? Feelings are in the heart. And in any relationship, you have to have a connection with the person.
Right.
Now, if you're going to give them a condom or if you're going to give them sex education, before we give them any knowledge of love and healing, then we put the cart before the horse. We have to do it the right way.
So values should be there first to be taught, which we're not moving towards that. We're talking about education and sex, but nothing about real what love is. And you do mention in your book, we are living in two worlds, the devil's world and the God's world. And the devil's world is about lust, and God's world is all about harmonizing that relationship with body, mind, and soul.
I'll give you a very small example, which perhaps will make it very explicit. Now, I'm at home. I am studying the Gita, or I'm studying the Bible, or I'm studying any religious book. What does it say? It says, have sex after marriage. Those are the preachings. And when you're going to these religious institutions, you are learning about that. But when you go to school, what is the child asked? The children, your friends are asking, have you had sex? Have you experienced it? Oh, you're an old-fashioned person.
Right.
So there is a conflict in the child whether she's 9 years old or 15 or 18. And when you're exposed to that kind of conflict, they cannot decipher what is right and wrong. And as you're growing up, you know how the hormonal changes take place. So you're propelled into sexual urges. But how to control them, how to harness them towards love, that is not being told. Handing over a condom, I think, by the education department or by any country in that sphere, I think is not the solution to teenage pregnancies. We have to teach them how to control those sexual urges and what you can actually do with the power of the mind by giving them a belief pattern of how to feel in love and how to wait for that love. And once we can ground them in that level, saying the reason why you should wait for your love, and that's exactly what my book points out, why you should wait for that love.
And what somebody says, well, I waited and I didn't find it. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here,
No, that is fine. A lot of people say that I have been waiting but I never found it, so I missed out on sex. But actually, sex is not more important than love. And the more we are able to emphasize this in our education department, through the schools, then there'll be no conflict between the teachings at home and the teachings in the school.
Right.
And this has to be synchronized now. The time has come when we have to sit back and we have to reflect what is missing. And I think I have pointed that out very clearly in the 3 volumes, going step by step, exactly telling you what your mind is going to feel, what your heart is going to feel, what your body is going to feel. And I talk about your soul and the power of the soul and how the mind has to connect to the heart. Then you find your true love.
It's more like in a dialogue form, you have this interaction and the interplay between people and characters here, and they're asking those questions like we're just talking about, and then they're providing the solution. The healer is there and providing those solutions. And very succinctly you say, some people think they're old-fashioned, some people think they're modern, but there's no such thing. What it is foolishness or wisdom. So we're talking about being wise and making informed, discrete choices in life. But for a young teen, who's going to school, it becomes difficult. And then you talk about 17 mothers. So we're talking of 17 different mindsets, how the mother is imparting the education. And the 16th mother is what I think I really like. The 16th mother has the enlightened education to tell the child that,
what is marriage?
Yes, what is marriage, what the true marriage is all about. And that's where the body, mind, soul is there, and that's with one person that you're talking about, and not just, because if you see as I mentioned, that there are divorces, but the second marriage also hits a divorce, and that's even a higher percentage. And the third marriage is almost like 70% people who get married a third time are getting divorced. So this is like very high numbers, and it's disturbing sign, and it shows that there are adjustments or flexibility is not happening, and we're still looking for that soulmate, which is not happening because so many marriages are taking place with one individual.
Yeah, but that means the way they're going about choosing their partner, somewhere down the line you're wrong. How can you choose your partner through a live-in relationship? You're already having sex, so you are going to get influenced by that. Like you've been with somebody for 2 years and you think maybe I should marry this person. But that's not the way to decide. The way to decide, is very sincerely I've written this in the book, is that you will have to do the homework for that. And the homework is very simple. You have to practice celibacy, and you have to allow your mind to connect to your heart. And when you go looking, you must think in your mind, I'm only going to look for that person who God made for me. Or if you believe in God. If you don't believe in God, then you say the one that is made for each other. Or my soulmate. You have to give that partner of yours some kind of name so that you know what you're talking about, what you're wishing for, what you're desiring for. And your wishes and your desires you let loose in the world, then everybody begins to help you there.
But we're just living in that culture that creates this impediments to true love that we're speaking for. Even if we did the homework, then there are people with the peer pressure comes in. People start thinking, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know what's going on, maybe I should just explore, experiment, and that's what's happening, and it leads to disasters and broken relationships and a lot of tears.
Well, the broken relationships come in. Why are they coming in? Because you say, okay, I'm going out with this person tonight, and you are expecting sex, whether it is the boy or the girl. So they go to quench those sexual urges, and after that they're empty. And the mind is not able to sort of understand what the body is doing, but where's my heart? They're not connected. So my book reconnects you. So if you've been through a traumatic stage, if you've been through a divorce, there are methods of healing which I put in.
I was coming to that. Yeah. So what are the methods of healing that you are talking about?
The methods of healing is that, first of all, when you read the whole book, it will start training your brain to believe in the concept that you can find your match, the one that God made for you. First of all, you have to believe in that. Secondly, you have to also believe that if I'm going to go this way, then I must do the homework for it. If I want to bake a cake, the oven heat has to be exact, otherwise the cake will not rise. And the same thing happens with your heart. The more you keep wishing for that to happen, it does happen. And you meet the person and you just know. And it's happened in many people's lives.
Yeah, we do see good relationships. It's not that everything ends in disaster. So there are people who find their true soulmates. There are people who are very blissfully happy in their relationships. So obviously, but do you feel sometimes it's karmic?
See, you cannot put it down to karma. Exactly. One thing I just say is that if you're sitting back and thinking everybody is having sex, why not me? Then you are doomed to exactly that will happen in your life what is happening in their life.
But what if somebody did everything right and still the relationship turns sour?
This is what I'm coming to. I come to towards the end of the book when I say that if the girls are going to take the vow that I will practice celibacy and wait for my true love, and the boys don't do that, then you're going to be waiting for a long time till that boy comes out of his trauma, then he gets a healing. Because casual sex, according to my book, which and I have proved it, causes emotional damage. Because you're getting disconnected from the heart. You're having sex without love. You're having sex without commitment. What does the heart want? The heart wants my Prince Charming. The heart wants my Cinderella.
But we are going with other people's Prince Charming.
Yes, so going with other people's soulmate, and you're saying, I'm experimenting with life. But what about experimenting with love for a change? Right. If you have, I throw open the option. I said, if you've lost in your relationships and you've been through divorces, then why not try the new method which I'm offering to people? Try it and see what happens. You have nothing to lose. In fact, you will feel better with yourself because, see, this body belongs to you. And this is the only thing I've been born with. Now, if I'm born with this body and I want to submit it to somebody only who truly loves me, then for that I have to understand that I'm not going to go with other people's soulmate. I'm not going to get involved with casual sex. I'm not going to allow myself to get emotionally damaged. I don't want trauma.
Yeah.
Now, you see, during the, Valentine's Day, see how many breakups? Expectations are from people who've not made a commitment to you. So where is the sanity, where is the wisdom in going with someone who's not committed to you? And you're wasting your time, actually.
And you do quote from the Bhagavad Gita as well, when we're living in this age and there's so much of decay and people are without restraint, they're behaving without restraint. So thereafter, it's going to be unhealthy intermingling of incompatible cultural traits. That's what you're talking about over here.
Yeah, there is a lot of definitions which I have tried in various ways to help the child to understand that if she's not understanding from this angle, then I try this angle. And the reason why I put it into play form is because those are actual conversations that have taken place during my interviews. And I found them, sort of lost, and the desire is so much to fall in love, but the path is so far away from them. And they're trying to grasp it,
Well, that's the higher road. One has to take the higher road of values. And many times people get lost and get astray because if one person doesn't understand the true meaning of marriage, the other partner cannot do anything much about it.
Exactly. Marriage, I've written there a whole chapter. What is marriage? Marriage is bringing another person into your family. You have a mother, father, sister, brother. Right? And you have uncles, you have aunts, and your family is very closely knit. And when you bring someone in, that person becomes part of your family and you become part of another family. The family has to grow. Now, if the couple that is getting together, if they suddenly say, oh, I don't want your parents in my life, I don't like your sister, I don't like your brother, then you're creating trauma for your partner. You're telling your partner to quit your relationship of love, which was unconditional, and come to me, where I am already putting on conditions on you, saying you don't talk to your sister, you don't talk to your mother, you don't do this, you don't do that. So that person is already in trauma. You can't cut yourself off.
But sometimes people say, well, my family is so interfering, so my wife or my husband doesn't want them to be part of our lives. We want a little bit more, nucleus family. That's what's happening. The structure is changing. What would be your take on that?
The reason why they are changing is, see, how are the couples coming together? Are they coming together because they truly love one another? Now you look at the divorce rate. If it's 80% or 90% or 70%, that means there is no true love already between the two. So that is called lust. Why the person is in the relationship? Is it because she thought she was in love with you? Or did she think because of the car, because of the house? What swayed the whole relationship? We do not know. Because we were never brought in to even meet that person. They just come and say, oh, I'm getting married to so-and-so. So when that relationship, the new one, is based on lust, and that lust becomes so demanding on any partner, then that is going to break the true love from which you grew up with. And that becomes very traumatic. You go from this side also, you go from that side also. And in the end, you lose your money if you're a man, you lose the house, and then you're back to a small little apartment alone by yourself. Because in the whole process, you fought with your parents, you fought with your brother, you fought with your sister. So the love gets snatched away from you from all angles. And that is not traumatic, that's deep, deep down depression.
Right.
And how many people are living that way alone?
Yeah. And you talk about depression and anxiety, with
the
all
fears.
these conflicts that come in. Yeah.
And if you have a backlog, if you have a baggage in the mind, then what happens when you fall in love?
You're bringing that baggage to the second relationship.
No, that baggage causes the fear. And the deeper the love, the deeper the fears. Yeah. So I have described all of that. Actually, how you, when you're emotionally damaged and you fall in love, it becomes a blockage to that.
Right.
How are you going to reach out?
Yeah, so unless you're healed You cannot get into the second relationship at all. Now, you and your sister, Dr. Janice Debari, both of you wrote this book. What was the genesis behind it? I mean, what made you decide? I know you did a movie here, My India, and we know that, very much ITV was very much part of it as well at that time. But tell us, was that the genesis behind it, the My India?
It started with the ITV only when we went to cover a program on the non-resident Indians, and they had a conference called the Generation Gap, and it started from there actually. And I saw everybody speaking, but they were avoiding the topic of sex. Now, parents don't want their children to have sex before marriage. That's very clear cut amongst the Indian, the Asians. And not only that, you'll find it coming in from the Russians, the Chinese also. So where is this theory of sexual liberation coming from? Who established it? That became questionable. So I said, I have to question that who brought that philosophy, and that has destroyed our society. Then from there, when we did the program on ITV, it became a live program and it made a hit. And then Doordarshan came, and they had seen part of those programs. So they asked me, can you make a documentary on the non-resident Indians? Because we feel this is going to hit India somewhere down the line. So then I embarked upon that. What actually was the problem, the trauma that the parents were facing, what the kids had to say. And then at the end of it, the Doordarshan team, the director and all said, Raj, go find the solutions. You've done such a deep study, go find the solutions. And then, now you won't believe it, but I had a dream.
And 8 years of, working on this, and you found the solution. And it's in 3 volumes.
It's in 3 volumes, and I read almost 78 books on psychology before I embarked upon this. And I said, maybe some psychologist has found the solution, but when I looked through them, they all did not promote sex after marriage. They agreed that premarital sex was absolutely fine, and that is where I thought was the problem. Is it marriage after sex or sex before marriage? And this is a choice you have to make.
And you become like a Dr. Indian Ruth over here, because you've been talking to a lot of parents, you've been talking to a lot of young adults. And what came out of those experiences you had with them?
Oh, recently when I've been talking to the people, whether I was in Orlando or in New York, the parents' dilemma. The child is coming home at 10:30. I don't know where my daughter, who she's going out with. Why is she coming so late in the night? The son is coming late. Son says, I am going to be in a relationship. Dad, I'm going to have sex and I want to marry this first woman. And the parent is saying, but you're only 18. How can you make a decision on marriage? Do you know what marriage is? Do you know the implications of it? No, he says, that's it, fine. And this is very, very traumatic for the parents. I mean, a child is coming at 1:30 in the night. I mean, how would you feel?
Right.
You don't know where your children are.
Yeah.
And they're only 17, 18. Right. We never came home at that time in our times. We were always back home at 10 o'clock and having dinner with our parents. So I questioned the kids. I said, what do you do for your dad when you come home? Oh, it's dad's responsibility to pay for my education. I don't have to do anything for him. That's where the problem lies.
Right.
That's where the problem lies. These children have to be told that you have to have a connection with your parents. At 18, they're not even talking to their parents. Now, where is this going to lead to? You're getting someone else, you're just having sex, there's no commitment, no marriage, and already you're breaking your relationship with your parents at home. Is that right? Somewhere down the line,
somewhere down the line,
we have to now stand still, talk, and reflect before we embark upon a relationship. And that's my advice.
I think it's self-learning and self-reflection that really, helps you to evolve and make you understand, where am I going and am I doing the right thing? And I think you said very nicely over here, and it's beautifully illustrated. I mean, like she said, in 3 volumes, there are like 150 illustrations. 150. You got over 23 artists to do this for you. And it says here, we were born to give joy to our family and the world. We were born as divine souls and will always treat the opposite sex with love and respect and not view them as sex objects. I think that itself encapsulates pretty much what you've been saying throughout the book. And we were not, so this is like we're not born to destroy one another. We're born to make the world more beautiful and comfortable. And it may sound like an utopian world, but it is true. You can't find it. Like I said before, that true love does exist. There are people who have found true love and experienced really good happiness with their relationship. So it's not that we can't find it, it's just that we have to learn to have more values and change our mindset. Some way have to reset the button, reset in our mind, reset. You know, when you do reset, delete everything that was not working and it's negative, and then reset and start again and find love that is unconditional. That is very important. When you put conditions to love, that's when everything starts to go wrong.
It starts falling apart. Every relationship starts to fall apart.
And I think that's one of the fundamental qualities for true love to really flourish and flower, you know.
So you have to learn it.
Yeah.
You have to read about it first. But which book tells us that? My book does.
So these are 3 volumes. And the second and the third volume continue with the same dialogue.
Yes, it continues, and it helps you to understand the games also that people play during the marriage and how to cope with it. If you get involved with somebody who's playing games with you, it teaches you how to identify it, how to identify true love. Because if you go wrong in identifying true love, then your whole life goes.
Well, that's Knowledge of Love and Healing, and that's by Dr. Raj Lakshmi Darbari, and explores love from a very deep, deep way to find solutions that are going to be sustainable and work for you. I'm Renee Mehra. Thank you so much for watching the Renee Report. Thank you. Welcome to the Renee Report, bringing issues of topical interest.